session, the printing, there was a lot of confusions. Now the print function we discuss, you can have any number of values, comma separate, and it will print as it is, right? Now for example like this, and then we use, if you want to separate this with instead of a space something else, you can use set. The next thing that we discuss is a formatting, like when you say print, for example price, and let's say 3.999, which will print as it is, right? So what happens here again, you are printing two different values, so in between you have a space. Then formatted one, the first one we have a string modulo, where we have print, then we have the string, let's say price, right? And then we will have the formatting like 7.2, like F, which means let's say 1, which means we want to round it off to one decimal place. The value is 3.999. So what happens here now, this number is rounding off to one decimal place and it will put into this place, right? So this is exactly what will happen, right? And the 7 we discuss, which will give you the 7 places or 7 digits. It will use to represent the number. The next thing that we have discussed is use of dot format. So if I represent the same thing with the dot format, right? So we can have price. In dot format we have curly brackets, and dot we can say format and the value. So this is what we have discussed, and then here we will put the formatting, right? Now when you put a formatting, you have to put index value, which means whether it's the first value, second value, and so on. So this is needed. For example, without that the number of decimal places will not work, right? So formatting. So when you put it that, you will get the same output. The last one we discuss is F string. Instead of this, we can directly say F, and then we can directly have the number within this, right? So instead of index, you can have the number, right? And yes, we are getting the same answers, right? I hope by now you have some idea. I think keep on practicing this one. This is the only way to understand these different ways of formatted output in Python. Last one, converter functions. Now if you put 3.999, right, basically it will give you 3 because it will take the integer part of it, right? So make sure that when you have the converter functions, understand what happens. Basically it will take the integer part of this floating point number. So there's no rounding off involved in this process, right? If you have any questions, please, you can always raise, you can interrupt me, or you can use the chat session. So please do use the facility. Right, now let me share my slides for today. And my plan for today is the third topic. Now we have done basics and the input and output last time. So today I am going to go through with the control structures. So we look at the sequence, selection, repetition, and also like you combine multiple control structures. So that's exactly what I'm going to discuss today. Right, so let me quickly go to so I have put all the lecture material, so you can download it from the Google Classroom, right? So let's start the control structures. Now before discuss the control structures in Python, I would like to introduce another data type which we call Boolean. So those who already done programming, you know that you can have the Boolean to represent two distinct values. in this case true or false. Now in Python, these two values, because in Python everything is written in simple, but except these two values, for example, here the true and false start with the capital letters, right? T and F, right? So if you just put true, all simple, then you will get an error, right? So we have discussed int, float, string, and now we have another addition called bool, and in bool we have true, false, right? So let's quickly show you. So we have true, false, but if you use simple true, so you will get an error. Python will not recognize this, right? And then if you want to know the type, we can say type true. It says it's a Boolean class. Type false. Again it will say Boolean, right? So you can see in Boolean class we can recognize two values, that is true and false. Now the next thing is how to use these Boolean expressions, which means when you have things like comparison. Now for example, let's say I want to compare something like this, 5, whether it's equal. Now this is not equal assignment. Now this is, you check the comparison, you check whether 5 is equal to 3 plus 2, and you know that both sides are the same, so which means you are getting true, right? Similarly, I can ask whether this is equal to 6. 5, we can ask whether it's equal to 6. Then Python will get back to us with false. Similarly, let's look at string concatenation, which means addition two string values, right? This is called concatenation. This will glue together and hopefully we'll get hello. Now we can check whether this is actually hello, right? Whether glued together. So which means Python will say is true. Right? So that means now you can see in Python we can use this Boolean, so make for comparisons. So the operators involved in this, especially when you have like conditions, we have to make use of these comparison operators. So the first set is, we have less than, greater than, and if you want to check whether it's less than or equal, so you have to use both of these, and this is greater than or equal, and this is already we have done, equal. And make a note of that this is, if you have exclamation and equal sign, then it represents not equal to. Right. Now let me quickly show you like, let me take one side, right. Right. Now we have less than. Now for example, I can ask whether 5 is less than 6. It says true. Then we can ask whether 6 is greater than 5. Yes, it says true. Let's say 5 is less than or equal to 5. What do you think? It's less than? No, but it's equal. So we'll get true. Similarly, 5. We can ask whether it's greater than or equal to 5. True. Right? And then 5, we can check whether it's equal to 3 plus 2. It says true. We can ask whether 5 is equal to, not equal to 6. Which says true. So you can play around this one, but I don't think this is a difficult one. Now once we learn these comparison operators, the next thing that we need to discuss is the logical operators. When you have multiple things to combine together. Now, what are the multiple things? Right? Now, for example, let's say we'll take the first two. I'm going to ask this: 5 less than 6. Right? And let's say I want both comparisons to be true, right? So we can use AND operation. What happens with the AND operation I will discuss. So in this particular case I will show you both sides. Now in this particular case this is true and this is true. When both the values true, then this whole expression becomes true. How do you check? You can easily check this. So you can say true and true will give you true. Similarly, let's start with the false, false. I will go by the order. So let me start with false, false and false. If both conditions false in AND operator will give you false. Then if you have true and false, that means one of them is true, the other one is false. With AND, it's false. So we'll switch these two, false and true. The answer will be the same. So that means if any one of the expression evaluated false, the whole expression becomes false. Now if you want to get true, right, the satisfy both the conditions, like in this particular case we have to say true and true. Right. So you can check, give some values, like for example if I say 5 less than 6 and 5 equals 6, yes, what is my outcome? Yes, false. What is my, it's false. If one of these becomes false, then whole expression becomes false. Right, I hope you got it. The second logical operation is O operator. This is how O works. Now let's say we have false, 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 O, false. It's false. Then let's say true, O, false. That means one expression becomes true, other one becomes false. Then it becomes true. Now AND operator, to satisfy AND operator, both sides should be evaluated true. Whereas in O operator, you will notice that when one of them is evaluated true, the whole expression becomes true. Now let me change the order. Yes, okay, sorry, my typing mistake. False or true, again true. So you can guess true or true will evaluate true. Right, okay. Now, if I put this, can you tell me the answer? Yes, what is the answer for this expression?
True.
Yes, so this side, this is true, this is false. Since one of them evaluated true, so this should be true. Right. The next one is not operation. Not means opposite. Now that means if you say not false, meaning it becomes true. Not true means that becomes false. So can you tell me what is the outcome for this one? If I put not 5 equals 6.
True.
Yes, so this becomes false. So not false means true. Right. Okay. Now that is what I have discussed here. So AND operator, OR operator and NOT operator. Now some examples are given. Now let's say you have a variable, and if you want to check whether it's variable between 0 and 10. So this is one way to do this. So this side you are checking whether x is greater than 0. This side you are checking whether x is less than 10. So if the value is in between 0 and 10, then it will be true, otherwise false. So that means 1 to 9, right? So let me say x equal, let me say 5. Now let me check x greater than 0 and x less than 10. You check both the condition. So it says true. Right? Now let me change x. Now this time I'm going to put 10. Right. Now can you tell me what will be the output? What will be the outcome?
True. False. False, right?
False.
False.
Yes. Why? Now first side you say whether it's x, is it greater than 0? Yes, because it's 10. Now the next thing, the problem is whether 10 is less than 10. No, right? So it's false. So the question you had is this one. If you check whether the 10 is less than 10. No, 10 is not less than 10. 10 is equal to 10. Now similarly operator. Now in this one operation, right? And we have two expressions here. The first one, actually this is, if you remember, this symbol we have discussed, you will get the remainder, module operator, right? This gives you remainder. So what it means, you divide n by 2 and remainder. You are checking whether the remainder is 0, right? Okay, now let me go back to, right? So for example, let me take 10. Right? This is the module operator, which means you divide by 2 and you check the remainder. So the remainder is 0, isn't it? So now basically you are checking whether this is equal to 0. It's true, right? So if it is a even number, this is true. So let's say 11. So it's false. Why it is false? Because when you divide 11 by 2 and the remainder will be 1. Okay. So this is what we are going to check here. You divide by 2, remainder you check. Similarly, here you divide the number by 3, you are checking whether it's 0. So what that means? Either the number divisible by 2 or divisible by 3, this will evaluate true. Okay, let me give you number. So let me say n equals 2. Right? Now if you say n, this is module operator. You are checking whether it's 0 or n, right? 3, 0. So this will be true. Why true? This part is true. You divide 2 by 2, remainder is 0. Right. Now let's change n to 3. Yes. So now if you run this, now this time you know, right? This time you know the number is divisible by 3. That's true. Let me change one. Number is 5. Now what will happen? Can you tell me what is the answer now? Yes?
False.
It should be false. Why? If you divide by 2, remainder is 1. If you divide by 3, remainder is 2. Right? Which is false. Right? You can check. You divide by 2. Right? Remainder is 1. If you divide by 3, remainder is 2. Okay, good. Now, the last one. Not x greater than y. Right? So, let me put x equal 20. Y equals 10. Now, I am going to say not x greater than y. Can you tell me what is the outcome? Is it true or false?
False.
False. False.
It's false, right? Why? If you check x, is it greater than y? Which means 20. Is it 20 greater than 10? Yes, right? So not true means false. So I hope now you have understanding of comparison operators and logical operators. Right. Now I think we are ready to work on control structures. So basically we are going to look at so far what we have looked at is sequence, like all the programs that we have written last time. All the instruction executed sequentially, isn't it? You start with the top, go to the bottom, top to bottom. You execute all the Python statements. But you can make selections, right? And then you can also have repetition. Sometimes you need to repeat something again and again, right? So for that we are going to learn if statement for selection. For repetition we are going to talk about for and while loops. Right, let's start. So the if statement, basically if you want to make some decision, right? So the keywords that we will use in Python is if, else and elif. There's no end if, right? So that's slightly different from other programming languages where usually if some programming languages you have brackets, right? So in Python, only way to do this is indentation. That means a proper spacing, right? So let's see. Now let's write a small program. Right? In this program, what we are going to do, we are going to find out the absolute value of a number, meaning you are going to get a number from the user, right? And then you are going to print absolute value of the number. Now, if you look at the simple terms, right? The logic behind this is you get the number and you check whether the number is negative. Why negative? Because you know that if the number is positive, you don't have to do anything. But if it is a negative, you have to make it positive. So negative number, if you want to make it a positive, what you should do? Yes? You have -5. You want to make it +5. What do you have to do? You are getting a negative value and you want to make it positive. What we have to do for the negative number? How do you make a negative number to positive? Simply you multiply by
-1.
-1. Simply you do this. So this is exactly what we are going to do in the program. You get a number from the user. You check whether its number is less than 0. If it is less than 0, then you are going to multiply the number by -1. And you are going to print the number. So if the user input a positive number, then you don't have to do anything. You will print the number. But if user enters a negative number, then you multiply by -1, make it a positive, then you are going to print a number. Right, now let's see how we are going to write a program for this. So I'm going to use a program. So I'm going to select a new file. So you can also work with me. Right. First of all, can you tell me like how to get the input from the user? Can you tell me the command? Let's say I'm going to get a number from the user. So what should I type here?
Input.
Yes, we have to use input. So input a proper message. So I'm going to say, okay, enter number. Right, okay. Is that all? Is this complete?
Convert it to the int.
Yeah, either you have to convert it to a floating point number or integer number if you're expecting a number, right? So converter function should be there. So I am going to assume that I am going to enter input values. So this is how I converted this. So if I save, file, save. Let me go to desktop. Okay, programming for machine learning. Now we have developed 3 programs. Program number 4, ABS, absolute value. Right. Now if I run it, run module. Okay, it will ask. Right. It will ask to enter number. Let me put 5. That's all. Right. Okay, I made a mistake. Let me run again, run module. I put 10. Yeah. So I think I put a space or something, that's why I got an error. I just put space, I think. Right, now the next one. So what is the next one? Okay, I have to make this selection. Right, in Python we have what we call the if, and then we have to have the condition. So the condition is we have to check whether the number is less than 10. Then you need to have a colon. When you press enter, okay, that's inside the if. So if the number is less than 10, this is what we want to say. So we want to say if the number is less than 10, then number should be, right, you get the number multiplied by -1. If you're not familiar with this one, remember this is not mathematics, right? So in computing, you have a left hand side and right hand side. So always you work on the right hand side, you assign the value in the left hand side, right? So that's why we can write something like this. So this is called assignment. So what happens, you get a number and you multiply with the -1, then you get an answer. That answer is stored back in number. And that's all. There's no end if.
Excuse me, sir. Number less than 10. No, number less than 0.
Sorry, it should be 0.
Yes.
Thanks. Yep. We are checking whether the number is negative, so it should be less than 0. Right. Now, there's no end if. But if you want to like come out from this, you have to go to the right. So if you are in Python, if you are inside the if, it indicates using this spacing, which we call indentation, right? So for example, if you want to just print the answer, right? So you have to go to the first line which means you are going to align with the previous one to say that you are in the same level, which means we are going to say print, right? Okay, now I'll put some spacing. I think I better move this frame here and the other frame in the other side, so that, yeah, right. I think now it should be clear. Right, now let's run and show you. So we can say run module. Yes, it says enter number. Let me put 5. If I put 5, it's not less than 0, so it won't go inside, it will directly print the number. It says 5. But let me run again, run module. Let's put -5. This time it goes inside, multiply with -1, and you get the answer as 5. Right? So to have a meaningful message to the user, I can say something like the right, like this. So let me run module. So let me put 5, and now it says the absolute value of the number is 5, right? Right, okay. If you finish up to this point, please let me know by raising your hand so that I can move to the next one. Shamal, Chintaka, having issues? How about Asanka? And Adisha? Okay, right. Let's move on. You can lower the hands. Thanks. Right. Now I think you got the point here. What you need to remember, this is selection. Selection indicate with if. And this is a condition, and if is a condition evaluated to true, then you go inside. The inside is indicated in Python by this spacing, which we call the indentation, right? So there's no end if, but when the line comes aligned with the others, it means this is outside. This print statement is outside. If you want to print this statement inside, then you have to align with this one, right? So that's what you should remember. And normally the spacing is 4 spaces, right? The standard is 4 spaces, right? So the spacing is very, very important in Python. So if you make a mistake in spacing, then you will get an indentation error, right? Now let me go back, right? And then let's remove like this, right? And if I try to run it, it says, okay, expected and intended block. So it will give you an error, which means it will indicate that, okay, there's an error with the indentation. So proper indentation is a must when you work with blocks in Python. So especially in this case, we have to properly indent to get the correct answer. So minus, let's say 6 gives you the value 6. Okay, right, now I think we can move on. Right, now let's try to write this program. It's a simple one. I want you to get marks for, let's say, for a subject, and then you compare whether marks is greater than 50 or equal to 50, then you are going to say pass, otherwise fail. Right? Can you quickly write the program in Python? Now earlier we had only one side. What do you mean by one side? If it is true only you are going to have something. False, you are not going to do anything. So which means we had only if. What happens, the next one is you have to have else. You can have else colon and then you can have the false statement, right? This side. Okay, let's start. So first of all, we have to get marks from a user. So for that, right, I'm going to get a new window. Right. Okay, first of all, I have to get marks. So if I say marks, I can say int input enter marks. So let me save this file, save. So this is program number 5. Pass fail, right? If I run it, run module, right? So let's say 85. That's all, right? Now what we want to do, if the marks is greater than or equal to 50, we want to say pass, otherwise fail, right? Here's how you go. So you are going to say if, then the condition. The condition is marks. We are checking whether greater than or equal to 50. If it is true, then you are going to simply say print pass. Else, okay, now you can see. You have to align with if, the else part, and you have to align with the pass to print fail. That's all. This is how you have if else. Now previous one we had only if, right? There's no else part. Now let's run and observe. If I run this, okay, the mistake I have made here, I didn't close with the single quote. Right, enter marks. Let's put 85. Okay, we are getting pass. Right, let me put 25. It's fail. Yeah. Can someone tell me, if I put 50, what is the outcome?
Pass.
Should be pass, right? Because we are checking whether greater than or equal. So it's in the borderline, it says pass. Okay, I hope now you are comfortable with selection in Python. Only things that you have to learn compared to other programming languages, use of indentation properly, because that makes the blocks in Python, right? So proper indentation, which means proper spacing, is a must when you are writing a program in Python. Okay, any questions before I move to any further, please? You are clear up to this? Finish up to this point? Can you please raise your hands? Those who have finished up to this point? Right, good. We'll move to the next one then. You can lower the hands. Right, can you implement this one? So in this one, basically you have to get some temperature values, and depend on the temperature you are going to output a state of water, whether it's in ice, water or steam. So I have given you the flow chart. Can you quickly write the code in Python? Right, those who finish, you can raise your hands. Right, let's start. So I'm going to get a new file for this. So first of all, I have to get a temperature value. So let's say, so I can say, you can use either float or int. In this particular case also I'm using int. We can say int right, you get the temperature value. Then we are here. Now this is a selection, so that means we have to have if, then we have to have condition. The condition is we have to check whether the temperature is less than 0, colon is a must, then press enter. Now within the temperature, so if it is less than 0, so we know that we have to output ice, so simply we can say print ice. Right. The next one is else part, so that means you have to go the other side, so that means you have to go back, right? You have to say else colon, right? Now else colon, and then you are this side, again you have a selection. So in this selection you are checking whether the temperature is less than or equal to 100. So we have another if, we can say temperature less than or equal 100. If that is the case, if it is true, we are going to say it's water. So I'm going to say print water. Else, okay, else you go to the other side, right? The last one, so you can say print steam, right? That's all. So if I say run module, we have to first of all save it. This is program number 6. I'm going to say it's temp, right? So it asks me to enter temperature value. Let's say -20. It says ice. Let me run module. Temperature, let's say 25. It's water. Let me run again. Let's say temperature is 100. Is still water because we put less than or equal, right? Let me run again. Let's say 105. Okay, it says steam, right? Okay, if I finish up to this point, can you please raise your hands? Okay, good. You can lower the hands. We'll move to the next one. Right. Now, the same thing we can simplify. So, I will take the same code. Well, now when you have a nested selection like this, right? I'm going to save this. Save as. So let me say program number 7, temp, I'm going to say 2, right? Now this time I'm going to change it. Now if you have a nested selection, why we say nested? Within the selection we have another selection. So when you have a situation like this, actually you can write more compact way by combining else and if together. So what you could do is you can combine else and if, we call elif. So but make sure that you have to indent properly. So that means this print statement should align with the top one, and else part should come here. Again, next print should come here. Right now you see that it's more compact than the way I have written, especially when you have multiple nested statements, so you better write it compactly using elif statement. So elif means you combine else and if together. So let me run module. So it will be the same. Just to make sure that the code runs correctly. Yeah, it works fine. The same thing. So make a note of this. Again, if you have completed, please raise your hands so that I can go to the next one. So with that, we finish our discussion on selection. Now it's time for repetition. Rajit, Sahan, Shamal, Alok. If you are getting error, please always you can copy paste the error in the chat session so that I can help you out in case if you are running out with an error. How about Bamunu?
I'm working on it.
Okay, no problem. Take your time. Right. So things that you need to note, especially when it comes to indentation. The proper indentation is a must, and the default indentation is you can use 4 spaces, right? Okay, right. Now I think we can move to the next one. So please, you can lower the hands. Thanks. Okay, now we are going to look at the repetitions. So under the repetitions, I'm going to first talk about the while statement, especially when you want to repeat something. The while loops are actually conditional based loops, we call it, because the number of times you are going to repeat based on the condition.
Right. Excuse me, one question.
Sorry?
Is it okay? Yeah, I have one question. Is it okay to ask it
Yeah,
now?
no problem. Go ahead. Yes.
So regarding this if statement, so is there a way of closing this if statement? How we are going to avoid the next argument capturing to else, the last else, or something like that?
Now the thing is this. Now I'll go back to, let's say here, right? Now, when we talk about, let's take some toy problem, let's say x equal 10, and we are going to have selection. We are going to check whether if x is, let's say, less than 5, you are going to do something, right? Let's say print number is less than 5, right? Now let's say if you have only this one, then there's no output, right? If x is 10 and if you have this statement, nothing comes out because there's no else part. So if I update this with the else part, right, indentation is very important, else, and if you say, let's say print the number is greater than 5, right? So now we are getting error. So problem here is, since I'm actually using the shell, you don't see this properly, but if you have written a script, you have to properly indent this one, which means these levels indicate that okay, this is inside if and this is inside else part. Now when you type something after this one without the same indentation, that will indicate the end of if, right?
Okay, good.
So for
So it's
example,
managed by indentation, right? Okay.
so there's no way that we can actually make the end. Only thing we can do is we can change the indentation. So right after this one, if you have another statement where you start from the beginning, that will indicate end of if, right? So that's why you have to be very careful about the indentation in Python. So you will see the same thing in loops as well. So I hope then you will have a more understanding of how you indent the statement in Python. Okay, so while statement, now let's look at a toy problem. So I always start with this toy problem where, let's say, maybe before this I will come directly like this. Let me take the shell. Right, okay. Now if you want to print something, let me take new window. If you want to print something, we can simply say print. Let's say print in numbers. I could have print like this. There's no issue, right? I'm not going to type everything. Let's say I'm kind of a lazy, so I will print only 3 lines, but this is a one way to write something to print from, let's say, numbers 1 to 10. Right. So if I run this, yes, 1 to 10, I'm assuming that, I'm lazy, so I didn't type it. So we can have. Now the problem here is we are repeating the same statement, right? We are repeating the same statement. So instead of saying 1, 2, 10 and so on, we are going to put a variable, right? So we are going to use a variable for this. So I'm going to use the same variable. So let's say number, right? So I'm going to use the same variable. Right. So I will put this number. Right. Now the problem is, if you have just a variable, right, you have to state the value of this. So for example, if I say number equals 1, and if you say print number, now you know that it will print the number 1. Okay, so it will print number 1. Now immediately after you print, you have to increase the value by 1. So this is how we will write in Python. So we can say number equals number plus 1. Right. So what happens now? This becomes 2. Right. But we don't see this because we are not going to print it. Now for that we can use a while loop. Now the simple way to do this, I'm going to say true. Just observe what will happen. Right? I'm going to say while true. Now you see the indentation. So this will indicate that these two are inside while loop. Indentation will indicate the start. So while loop, and this is the start and this is the end. Right? So let me run. So if I do this, you will notice we will have a never ending loop which goes from 1 to until you break this, right? So what has happened? This, when you say while is and we have a condition. So until the condition become false, this is going to repeat, right? So how it works, you set the number is to 1 and you check the condition is true, so you go inside, you print 1, right? Then you have the value 1 plus 1, number becomes 2, you go again, condition is true. So this goes on. Now only way to limit this is to change the condition, right? So the change in condition now in this case, if you want to limit to 10, so we have to have number and 10, isn't it? Because that is where we are going to stop. So if it is number 1, we have to pass, 2 we have to pass. So that means if the number is less than or equal to 10, we need to pass, right? So if I say run module, you can see now it goes from 1 to 10. So what happened? When you have number 1, you will check whether 1 is less than or equal to 10. It's true, isn't it? So it will print 1, then it will change it to 2. The next time, the number 2 is checked here. So you are checking whether number 2 is less than or equal to 10, right? You go on like this. And it will print numbers from 1 to 10. Okay. Now, I'm going to ask a simple question. Now let's say I want to print numbers from 1 to 100. What should I do? Yes, I want to print numbers from 1 to 100.
Replace 10 with 100.
Exactly, right? So when you talk about a loop, there are 3 places you have to look at it. That means the starting value. Then increment or decrement. So you have to look at this one. And third one is the condition. So in my case, if you want to print numbers from 1 to 100, you simply put 100 here, which will change my program to print numbers from 1 to 100. If you want to print 1000, now you put 1000 there. Another small question. Now let's say I want to print odd numbers from 1 to 100. Which place I should change in this code?
At the increment value?
Exactly. I told you you have to look for 3 places. So you start with 1, no change. End is also 100. You don't have to really worry about it because you have a 99, then you have a 101. So this is fine. You don't have to do anything. So you change this one. So I will change this to 2. Right? Then run module will give us odd numbers. Another question. Let's say I want to print even numbers from 1 to 100. What should I do?
Can change the starting value. Huh?
Exactly. So you can change the starting value. If you make it a 2, because increment will be 2, first you print 2, then you have 4 and so on. So simply when you click the starting value, it changes from even numbers. Okay, I have now a new question for you. I want you to write the code and I want you to send in put it to the chat. Print numbers from 10 to 1. Other way around. That means you print 10, then 9, then 8, and when you have 1, you need to finish. Shall we start then? Okay, let's start. I want you to print numbers from 10 to 1. If you have understood what we have discussed so far, I hope you should be able to quickly get the answer. Again, if you are finished, you can raise your hands. Yes, please do share your code in the chat. I want to see your code. Copy paste your code in the chat. Okay, good. I'm getting answers. So let's see. We have, yes, Amila, Ajay, Chintaka, Durshan, Bamunu, Mahanagi, and Darshita Samarkova. Okay, great. Okay, others, let me help you. Right now, remember the three places. Starting value. What is the starting value? We have to start from 10 to 1, isn't it? So which means we have to start from 10. Okay, we have done with the first one. Then increment or decrement. Now after 10 we need to have a 9, isn't it? So that means we have to subtract 1. Okay, instead of this we have to subtract 1. Right, now I will put true here just to check. So if I run module, you will see it will go like this. Okay, so you see, start from 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0 and so on. So we want to finish from here. That means the condition we have to set. That means in the condition we have to compare number with 1, isn't it? So when you say number with 1, right? So you have to pass 10. So 10 is, yes, greater than 1. So simply you can say greater than 1. So 10 passes, 9 passes, 8 passes, 2 passes. How about 1? No. Then you have to have equal sign. So you can check. You can go through this while the number is greater than or equal to 1. So let me run module. Yes, it will print numbers from 10 to 1. Okay, good. Finished everyone? Shall we move to the next one? Can you indicate by raising your hands whether you have finished up to this point? Right, I hope now we are comfortable with while loops. Now we are comfortable with while loops. Shamal, are you still working on? How about Chintaka, Rajit? Need any help? Okay, thanks guys. You can lower the hands. Right. So remember that while loops are quite useful when you have counted, right? Now, one of the example I hope maybe I could discuss, assuming that you will have, okay, right. Now let me take I want you to design a program, right? I know some of you already know programming, some of you have already done programming some time back. A simple one where I want to discuss, making calculation, for example, getting totals and so on, which means not only the repetition but also like you perform some calculations. Now to discuss that, I'm going to get another toy problem. So in this toy problem, we are going to look at how to get marks of 10 students, right? We are going to get marks of 10 students. And then let's say we are going to calculate the average marks. So I'm going to start with my very first program, right? And I'm going to slightly modify this. So let me save as a different name. So this time I'm going to have program number 9, average. The program I want to design is to, right, get marks for 10 students and output the average. Right. This is what I'm going to plan. Now first of all, I will go back to our original problem where we will print numbers from 1 to 10. So if you remember, I hope by now you remember. So the starting value is 1, increment is 1, and the condition is we check whether value is less than or equal to 10. Now what we do here is we are printing number 10 times, right? Now instead of number, if I put something else, it will repeat the same thing, isn't it? For example, if I put dialogue and if I run it, so this will print exactly 10 times. Yes, or else let me put something like this, right? Multiply by, let's say, 30. Repeat 10 times. Okay, instead of 30, let me put number. So those who have done programming, you know that these are some of the things that you might actually learn when you start programming. The variable number is there. First it will multiply by 1, then 2, then 3, and so on. Right? So instead of that, I can put something like this. Except the last one. This is ugly, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Now what I want to tell you here is, now this, whatever we put inside here, right, it will repeat 10 times. So getting marks for 10 students means I can take marks for 10 times. We can say, okay, int input, right? I can say enter marks. So what happens here? This getting marks repeat 10 times, right? So you can enter marks for 10 students. Oh, okay, I made a mistake in the first instance. Yeah, it will repeat 10 times. Now what I want to do to calculate the average marks, I have to get total. That means in each iteration I have to perform the total. That means we have to add marks to the total. That means we need another variable, right? Since you talk about the another variable, right, you can say, let's say total, I'm going to start with 0. Why 0? I will explain this. So every time when you get the marks, you are going to add it to the total. So this can be written as total equals total plus marks. Right. Now what do you mean by this? Let me put capital T. Reason is I want to make sure that this is a counter variable, so I want to separate out. So we are adding marks to the total. So what happens now? When this happens, right, you get the marks, you add it to the total, right? So we can put down this, and at the end of this I can print total, right, like this. So what happens? So this will repeat 10 times, you get marks 10 times, and each time you get the marks you add it to the total. Now the issue is what is the total value initially, so that's why we set to 0. Right. Now let me run. Okay, so we have, let's say, 34, 93, 24, 67, 39, 23, 57, 34, 79, and let's say 46. It's 496. Right. Now if you want to see what's happening inside, you can have another print statement. So let me put a print statement here. So I'm going to print marks. Let me put like this. I will put marks. I hope you now understand this. Total. So I'm printing both marks and total within the loop. I'm going to rerun this to understand what happens inside this. So let's say you have marks. First start with 34. You see the marks is 34. Total is also 34 because start with 0 plus 34, it becomes 34. Then put 93. Marks is 93. Total is 127. So you add 93 to 34, which becomes 127. So now I can repeat. You can see how it changes. That's how we will get 496. You got the point now. So I can remove this one, right? So how iteratively it will work. So now to get the average, it's simple, right? So if you want to get the average, let's say average is, you get the total and you divide by 10. Simple as that. So if I run it, right, now we can quickly put the values. We have 34, 93, 24, 67, 39, 23, 57, 34, 79, 46. 49.6, which is what we expected. So I did this because then it's complete. Now you know use of while loop together with another variable. We made the calculation. Simply we calculate the total marks of 10 students and then we got the average. So with this I expect you have the basic idea of while loop. Now we can quickly move to the for loop. Right. Now, having said that, those who finish up to this point, can you please indicate so that we can move to the next one? Okay, thanks. You can lower the hands. Right, now for loop. This is the last one that we want to discuss. For statement. Now for, we normally call a counted loop. Basically it can iterate over sequence, which means later on we will discuss if you have any iterative objects like string, for example. String is a sequence of characters, right? We will look at things like list later on, right? So when you have a sequence of objects, you can iterate using for loop. But now I'm going to look at in a slightly different way. I'm going to use as a counted loop like the way we have did with while loop as well, right? Now before we look at for loop, we have to talk about range function. And range function has 3 arguments. So you have to specify start, stop and step, right? You have to have start, stop and step. Right. Now what do you mean by start, stop and step? So let me talk about this bit. Now the range function, you have 3 parts. Right? Range, you can have start, stop and step. Right? So it looks like this. Now for example in here we have start and stop. Now if you specify start and stop, then if you do not specify step, the default value is 1. So which means you start with 1, then you have 2, then you have 3. So the 5 is the last number and it will not counted. So you go up to that number. So if you have 5, it goes up to 4. So if you say range 1, 5, you start with 1, 2, 3, 4. Right. Now if you have only one value, that means stop. Right? If you have one value. Okay. Let me write down, otherwise if you have 2 values, it's like this. If you have 2 values, you will have start and stop. What you need to get from here is step is 1. We'll put note. Step is 1. Okay. If you have only one value, you have stop. So the note is, okay, start value is 0, right? Step value is 1. So make a note of this, right? Finally, all the 3 values, right? Okay, so the second one, when you say range 5, it means you start with 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, right? I told you like stop, that value is not included, right? And third one, all the 3. So you have a start, stop and step. Step means like the increment that we have discussed. So you start with 1, the step is 2, so that means after 1 you have 3. Then you cannot have 5, right? Because it should be, the value should be less than 5, so that's why 1, 3. Right, I think we have discussed enough for us to run all these things that we have discussed earlier. Right, let me take a new program. I'm going to get file new. So this is for loop, right? And we can say something like this: for I in range. Okay, this is how we will write range. Let's start with the first one, right? 1 comma 5, and simply you can say print I. That's all you need. So let me save. This is program 10 for loop, right? So if I run it, run module, you see it will print 1 2 3 4. The range value will go from 1 to 4. So first of all I gets 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. Similarly, if you have just 5, I told you, it will start with 0. Run module. It's from 0 to 4. Then if you have 1 comma 5 comma 2, yes, it will go like this. Right, we have 4 more minutes to go. Okay, give me the code to print numbers from 1 to 10 quickly in the chat, please. I want to print numbers from 1 to 10. Can you write a for loop for that? Yes, yes, yes. Yes. Now simply we can say, okay, 1 to 10, isn't it? So starting value is 1. End value, if you want to print up to 10, you have to put 11. Step is 1. If the step is 1, you don't have to specify it, isn't it? You can say, nothing wrong, but you don't have to. And run module. Okay, good, great. Okay, small change. I want you to print numbers from 1 to 100. Can you share me the code? Yes, you have start 1. If you want to print 100, then this should be 101, isn't it? Step is 1, you don't have to type it. So if you run it, you will get numbers from 1 to 100. Okay, that's great. Next one. I want to print odd numbers from 1 to 100. Odd numbers, right? So starting value is 1, end value is 101, and the step is, yes, 2. That's all. Run module, you will get odd numbers, isn't it? You make the step. That's the easiest way. There are other ways. This is the easiest way. Okay, now this time, let's say I want to even numbers. Can you give me the answer using the for loop? Even numbers. Yeah. If you are going so even numbers, so let me put 200. That's all. Run module. So it starts with 2, 4, 6, 8, goes up to 100. Okay. The next one. Print in numbers from 10 to 1. Print in numbers from 10 to 1. That's the last one we are going to discuss for today. Again simple. Why? Starting value should be 10, isn't it? End value? Okay, you have to subtract. So because of that end value is 1, then we have to have 0, right? So you have to put 0 here. Then instead of incrementing, you have to decrease it. That means minus 1. That's all. Hope you have understood how selection repetition works, right? There are few things that I want to discuss, which I will discuss tomorrow. Spend the time on learning these things, very important, because later we are going to learn more complex one. By that time you should understand. If you feel difficult these parts for some reason, I highly suggest you to spend some time with the loops. So having said that, let me finish for today. Okay, I took 2 minutes more than that, so I hope you don't mind it. So I will share the handout as well as the video so that you can go through and come tomorrow. Okay then. If you have any questions, you can ask. I can wait for a few minutes. Otherwise, we'll finish for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, bye. Good night then. We'll meet tomorrow.